All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get things underway here. Today is Monday, March 6th, and we're here today for our first budget work session. But before we begin, we do the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. All right, do not have a roll call tonight, but I do just want to acknowledge Mike Marin could not be present tonight because his brother-in-law passed away this weekend, and I just want to send our condolences from the council to his family. But that's going to bring us to item 2, right into the budget discussions regarding the budget process. And before we get there, no roll call tonight. Nope. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Town Manager Jim Manny for an introduction here.
Thank you, Council President. We're here this evening to, as a budget work session for the fiscal year 2023-2024 municipal budget. Before I get into the formal presentation, I just want to acknowledge, the work that went into this budget and the people that did it. So, to my left is the Finance Director, Brian Sylvia. He's worked every day, night, weekend, up until midnight at night, just plowing through this budget. And the level of scrutiny that went into this and the level of work that went into it was really inspiring to see him do all this. But also there are other people. His deputy, Rose Bouchard, worked very hard on this. She crunched a lot of numbers. She was really putting together all the schedules. And Luke Murray was on the phone going over all the rough schedules, weekends, nights, so forth, so on. This budget's here because of the work of those three. They put a tremendous amount of work into it. I want to thank the directors, too. They're the backbone of the staff. They came in with realistic numbers. They made it easier for me. They prioritized, they scrutinized, they came in with realistic numbers, and then when tough cuts had to be made, not a complaint. Just, okay, we'll work on this for next year. So these directors worked very hard. They're all sitting to my right in the crowd, and I think you already know how hard they work and the level of service they provide to the town. I want to make this statement to really the residents of this town. Every dollar, every line, every expense was scrutinized and prioritized. And a decision was made what is best for the town, what best meets the needs of this town and the high level of services that they're used to. We know we're spending their money, their hard-earned tax dollars. Everyone who works for this town knows that loud and clear. There's no waste in this budget. This budget's lean. There's no fluff. Everything in here is to accomplish the mission of what we do day in and day out, all the workers in this town. So I want to give that assurance to the residents of this town. So let's go to page 2 and start. This is a formality, but these are all the budget hearings and the schedule that we've kept by the charter, what was due, when we're doing it, and why we're doing it. So, the budget was due on March 1st. It was sent to the council on time, and now we're in the work session. You'll see we're in March right now. Work session tonight is for the town council municipal budget. Tomorrow night will be another work session for the HSOA, Health Services, Human Services allocations. Then we have the school committee budget on Wednesday the 15th. And then the adoption hopefully comes on Monday the 20th. Go to the next page. This is the requirement. This is the South Kingstown Town Charter, which it's in black and white. We must have a submission of the budget and the budget message on or before March 1st, and I'm happy to say we met that deadline. Next page. 4 is the organizational chart to show the, it explains in clearly of what this budget is all about, starting from the left, the general government, general services, public safety, so on and so forth. All these are the lanes that this budget addresses with numbers. Next page. These are the numbers that came up with. This is right up front, we'll tell you what is the proposed tax levy increase that we came up with, and an explanation why. So it's 1.63% proposed tax levy increase over fiscal year 22-23. It's a 1.10 proposed tax rate increase to $11.07 from $10.95 per thousand. In bullet point number 3, you'll see $917,000 or a 2.9% reduction in the town operating budget request. That number is artificially, it should be higher that we cut because we budgeted initially for 6% healthcare increase for all the town employees, and it came in at 9.4%. I was at the League of Cities and Towns when that message was given to all the town managers and mayors, and the look on everyone's face that it was 30% higher than what we all had budgeted was pretty daunting. So there was another $100 and something thousand that we could have saved, but we had to put back in because of the added expense for everyone's health care here in this town. If you look at bullet point 4, approximately 90%, it's really more like 94%, of the town operating budget is made up of what we deem fixed costs. And you'll see the definition on the bottom. Contractual obligations, salary and benefits, utilities, vehicle maintenance, postage, tax bill printing, election expenses, salt and sand, snow removal, internet costs, motor vehicle supplies, medical supplies, fuel, insurance, and debt service. Page 6. These are the budget drivers. This is why it went up at all. It's an explanation. So the total change, you'll see the 2022, first line 23, the adopted budget was $29,253,229. That was the town's operating budget out of that tax levy. And the proposed this year is $30,808,333, with a total change of $1,555,104. Percent change would be 5.32%. So why is that number like that? If you look, you will see that the police department, this was a year that we had to negotiate a contract. And there was a total overhaul of that contract, which really needed it. The police officers went from some of the lowest paid police officers with a high turnover rate in this area to a rate more in line with surrounding communities. And they went on a different schedule, and our hope is to cut overtime by about 30% of $600,000 overtime budget, cut that by at least $200,000, if not more. The goal is half. But that alone drove, because of that contract renegotiation, drove up the cost to the town in this fiscal year by about $900,000 out of that $1.5 million. Well, let's start at the top. Legal fees. These are the budget drivers. Legal fees. Legal fees went up about 10%. You'll see that in 22-23, they were $219,000 approximately, went up to about $242,000, change of about $22,000 and change. Why is that? Number one, there was a new legal counsel specifically for labor that was hired in my tenure, so it was probably about 8 months ago, I think the council voted on it. And that's Vin Regasta, who handles, is specialized in law enforcement officer Bill of Rights hearings, on the job injuries, grievances, the real specialized and very tough legal knowledge that you need to handle that. I've worked with Attorney Regasta in the past. We budgeted $7,000. We've had to increase that upwards to maybe in about another $10,000. And the reason we have many on-the-job injuries and not Leobor hearings, but keeping us away from a hearing that he works on. Every dollar we spend with him, we save about 10 in the end. it keeps us away from these very expensive grievances, these very expensive rulings that come from the courts. So that is money well spent. Also, our solicitor, Mike Ursillo, requested, and it's in this budget, a $12,000 increase on his legal fees. Why is that? Since I've been here, I use legal counsel a lot. Every move I make, I check with legal counsel on a multitude of things. And that is something that really probably was not used as much by the town manager. There were 3 areas that I use him in his group much more. Labor. That very long negotiations we did with the IBPO, the police union, took about 6 months. Solicitor Ursillo sat right next to me the entire time. He was never used on that type of negotiations before. That's one. APRA request. Every municipality is faced with APRA request. Not doing it the right way is a very easy way to get sued. We make sure that the solicitor weighs in on all the important ones, gives us a timeline, and lets us know, and redacts everything that needs to be redacted on the bigger ones, not the mundane ones. He handles planning, zoning, all the stuff that he's handled in the past, but there's another one, contracts. Before I will sign any contract, his initials have to be on it, that he read it, looked at it, studied it, and approved it. So there's 3 areas that he spends a lot more time, and it's reflected in this budget. If you scroll down, you'll see, software maintenance. These are all things that were needed greatly. But you also scroll down about halfway, you'll see police salary and fringe benefits. The budget, police department's budget went from $8.2 million to $9.2 million, about $913,000 approximately. Once again, that increase into police services and equipment, that was mainly because of the contract, and it's a 3-year contract, and that is what the costs were that went up. And it was presented to the council at that time as well. You'll see a program, Police Civilians, new program, budgeted $45,000. Community Service Officer Program. Chief Moynihan recommended it. I looked at it. Many municipalities use it, including Narragansett, Block Island, and it really is a very cost-effective program to decrease the amount of patrols and overtime needed for police departments. You'd have 4 civilian officers that would handle parking violations, security and a presence at like the rec center, and patrolling in town on foot. Another one is the bike path. We'd start a bike path program where they would be on bicycles patrolling the bike path, which is really needed. And that is one area that I'd be very happy that we have an enhanced safety program. Emergency management, that is a $12,000 stipend that would be paid to the chief for being an emergency management director, which the town always had Chief Vespia doing, and we get a reimbursement of 50% of that from EMA. Important for FEMA reimbursements. Parks and Rec went up some. The Harbor Patrol, you'll notice a 160% increase. Why is that? Because now we are paying that salary out of our operating budget instead of ARPA funding. And this is the first year where we did that. First 2 years it was paid out of rescue plan money. Now we own it. So where do we save money? The reductions. EMS. We cut the positions for EMS because the station would not be ready this year. We needed 8 personnel there. We cut that from the budget. But those positions will come back next year or as soon as that EMS facilities open in Perryville. Outside agencies, you'll see a cut of $189,000, and the reason for that is because of the rescue plan money that'll be used to subsidize what was being cut. On page 7, this is really a snapshot of where the money's going. you will see that, the school fund is the first line. Their budget's $62 million. It increased $660,000, which is from the state, not from the town. That money came because of a new calculation. Superintendent Prince explained it to me, that they got approximately $700,000. I guess it came out to about $660,000. But the next line is the proposed property tax transfer to the schools from the levy, $55,994,000. The town budget, the next line, our general fund, which runs, that's the fund that runs the town, is $29,253,000. And the second from the bottom line is the proposed property tax levy amount in dollars, $77,164,044. I'll now turn it over to Finance Director Brian Sylvia to start getting into the specifics of the budget, and then when you start seeing the sections where the directors will be coming up, they'll be sitting opposite from me. Brian will explain the budget. They will interject and answer any questions you have.
Good evening. Before you have, I am picking up on page 8, so everybody's on the same page. This is a summary of expenditures. This represents the total budget of the town. This is, again, the town's general fund or operating budget is $30,808,000. This represents all funds. This is the general fund, this is the school department, and this is the outside revenues and the enterprise funds, and a breakdown of each, and you'll see what percentage each makes up. And again, as the town manager mentioned, as we get further in, you'll see we're going to show you a breakdown of each of these segments, whether it be general government, general services, what makes up, which departments are within each, and what the drivers are for each. And corresponding to that is the summary of revenues. Obviously, the largest piece here is the property taxes. Again, the $76,439,000. That represents 72% of the total revenue of the town. And again, we will get into this more breakdown on the future pages. So this is a property tax distribution. So this represents a breakdown of the property taxes, which is, again, the $75,659,330, and the breakdown of that. So that's where you'll see, again, the schools at 74%, the largest driver, and the town budget representing 17,023%, and then there are some budget transfers to some of the side fund, the smaller funds and enterprise funds within this as well. Actually, I should have mentioned too, just to point of clarification. So on the property tax distribution, that is both current. That is a total of both current year taxes in the levy and the budgeted amount for prior year taxes in that as well. That's how you arrive at the $75 million number. This slide, as mentioned previously by the town manager, this is a breakdown of the levy, which again, as proposed this year, as a levy increase of 1.63% and a rate increase of 1.10%. This details the breakdown of the levy between town and school, usually staying around that 25-26% mark, which is holding true again this year. As proposed, the town will represent 25.99% of the levy, whereas the schools will be 74.01%. This slide represents where we are right now and where we think we'll land. I worked with the tax assessor on this quite a bit. This is our assumed property tax roll for the coming year. You'll see towards the bottom of the page, we now have the motor vehicle phase out, and so the motor vehicle roll is no longer listed on the sheet. And also, I'd just like to point out on the taxable property growth, we're seeing a 0.53% increase on property growth, a little less than the 33.51 from last year. Here's a breakdown of the town operating budget. So this is just the operating budget, not the 104. This is where, again, you'll see if you total up the salary and benefits, that's going to make up about 77% of that 30 million, and just about $24 million. So that is obviously the budget driver on this slide. And again, that is the 5.32% increase. On this slide, the budget drivers here, as you can see, you have general services going up 24%. They are going to 4.3 million from 3.9. That, again, we have a few new departments in there, namely municipal court. And also in public safety, we have an increase of 56%, which again was detailed previously, and we will discuss further when police comes up regarding the new police contract. And finally, recreation, Parks and Recreation is up 12% as well. On the special revenue funds, these are funds that are not enterprise funds. They do receive funding from the general fund, though some generate quite a bit of revenue on their own and are nearly enterprise funds. The senior services, I believe they take in $518,000 from the general fund, and the rec center takes in $387,000. The Guild and then Peacedale office building do not take in any funds from the general fund. On the enterprise funds, these again, as mentioned, I just mentioned, these are self-sustaining and are funded by the ratepayers. These are enterprise funds. This is the water, wastewater, and solid waste funds. And again, they will be talked about in greater detail as we get to those departments with the department head when he comes up. Other fund transfers. These have come up a little bit already, as you'll see the school department transfer, as the town manager mentioned, that we are holding from the adopted amount from the current fiscal year at $55,994,773. And there you'll see, as I just mentioned on the prior page, senior center is getting $518,000, and the rec center is getting $387,000. Debt service contributions, the $101.3 million, and finally wastewater at $4,000. Total town budget. This is, again, the 30 million town operating budget, and a breakdown by a graph of that. So this is and this is, again, the revenue sources. So of the 75 million, roughly 76 million that we get in from tax revenue, 17 supports the general fund, or town budget. The next largest driver supporter of the general fund would be state aid at 6.3 million. Use of fund balance at 1 million, and then some other departmental is actually more than fund balance. And this would be all funds. So this is when looking at all of the funds of the town, this would be, again, all funds would be $104,997,388, and the breakdown of that. And again, the largest piece or driver here would be the school department at $62,635,000, which again, that, as mentioned, that increase represents an increase in state aid and not local appropriation. I wish this slide was bigger because it's a very informative slide. I really like this slide. It shows you where how the tax dollars are going, how where the use funds are. It's a very informative slide. I really do like the slide, but I couldn't find a way to get it bigger. But it's a very informative slide. I really do, in terms of breaking down both the expense budget and the revenue budget. This is a very telling slide, and one of my favorites through the process, which there are a lot. So this is a slide related to our fund balance. The town is proposing to use $1,043,608 of fund balance within the current fiscal year. That is down slightly by about 200,000, or 220,000, sorry, from the prior fiscal year. And overall, right now, within the town's audit of fiscal year 2022, or fiscal year ended 6/30/2022, the town's fund balance was $15,639,000. That represented 17.86% of the town's operating budget from fiscal year '23. Once again, the town ordinance, actually, I apologize, I don't know if that's an ordinance or a charter where I believe it's 10 to 18% we have to have maintained, so we are within that goal. And again, the GFOA recommends we hold 2 months' worth of operating expenses within our general fund balance, which would equate to 16.52%. So we are in line with both with regards to our fund balance. Now we're going to get into the departments, this first being general government, this being the departments that will make up this subgroup: town council, the budget referendum, probate, assessment board of review, planning board, conservation commission, and zoning board. And we have a summary first of this, but we can dive right into the departments. Skip a page? No. Okay. So first would be legal services. Legal services, as the town manager mentioned previously, is up 12% or $22,000. And I believe the town manager highlighted that previously. Next page. Next is the town manager's budget. The town manager's budget is increasing by $46,000, and I believe the town manager will speak to that.
There are two areas I'd like to highlight under the town manager's budget. So there was Jean Larson, who works here in my office. We transferred about 0.25% of her budget from administrative services to the town manager's office as her workload increased for the town manager in the areas that she worked. So we took that budget, 0.25%, half of what the Director of Administrative Services budget was for her, moved it over to my budget, which is where it should be. But also there was a major change as well. If you scroll down, you'll see under services on the 23-24 proposed budget, an increase of $20,405, and it increased $13,405 from last year. The League of Cities and Towns charges a fee to belong. It's based on population of the town and several other factors, and each city and town in this state is charged a fee to belong there. I think all 39 cities and towns at this point belong, and it's an invaluable service, whether it's legal expertise or lobbying or whatever. I mean, it's something that really, and I'm on the executive board for that as well. So, but that money that is charged to the town of South Kingstown, it's about $16,000, $17,000 per year, was under a different fund that it really didn't belong. It was under some type of grant. It didn't belong there. It belonged under the town manager's budget, and it was appropriately moved to reflect where it should be, not putting it somewhere where no one could find it.
I just want to add a little to that if I could. The actual cost for the League of Cities and Towns is $15,955, and you'll see an increase of $13,000. So in addition to that being placed now in the town manager's budget from the outside agencies, there were cuts to help mitigate the increase in this department, because it should have gone up about $16,000 and it's going up $13,400. Next is personnel. Personnel overall is up $1,315. And Luke Murray is going to speak to that.
Good evening. So personnel this year, you'll see on the bottom line that we've only gone up less than 1%. As the town manager indicated, Jean Larson has now moved over to the town manager's budget line. As you recall, we did hire a part-time employee last year, which has been very successful to the department. It's allowed us to clean up a ton of files, and we're planning on pulling over the personnel files from the police department as a result. So it's really helped us progress forward and be proactive rather than reactive. This year, we've made an additional investment in the employee engagement of about $1,000. That's for the entire town, right, our entire employee base. But that's also proven successful. It's a committee that we call Spark, or as Nina calls it, Sparkle. That runs the picnic, the Christmas party, like engagement types events, really trying to get the employees engaged in talking again. COVID was really difficult on the workforce. We've had a lot of disruption in the past few years. So that's a really important initiative for the department and something we would like to keep engaged in. Otherwise, I was able to cut down a little bit on our computer expenses this year. That was one-time purchases that we had to buy for the new employee. But now that that's over, we're just rolling that into the non-major technology fund moving forward. So I don't anticipate any major increases for the upcoming years ahead. But we have a great department and we support a lot of staff through what we have.
Thank you, Luke. Any questions for Luke?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll stay up for municipal court.
Next, we have the town clerk's office.
I have to share here. Okay. As you know, the town clerk's office has 6 major functions. It's now being tasked with a 7th for the municipal court. Board of Canvassers, the Canvassing Authority has a separate budget. I can run through that one pretty quickly. You're all aware that it fluctuates from year to year based on whether or not we are having elections. We had major elections in 2022. This year, we are budgeting for a school bond referendum, probably in the fall, which will necessitate a full-day election. I'm proposing we would have 3 polling places open, fully staffed. Because it's a Title 17 election under the state laws, we also will have to have early voting, which will run for 2.5 weeks prior to the election, and we have to hire poll workers for that as well. Canvassing Authority has 1 full-time employee and a 5-member Board of Canvassers who receive minor part-time salaries, and basically the rest of it is just operational based. And the total for that this year actually is decreasing because we do not have multiple elections, we only have 1. So the total proposed budget is about $89,000. Town clerk's budget is only increasing by 1.86%. There's no major increases in here. There's an increase to our advertising budget, which you'll recall the newspaper had an increase when they bid the contract, and we had to negotiate them down to a 25% increase. So we did have to include a 25% increase in the advertising line item. Most of the rest of them changed very little in the long run. And I will let Luke explain municipal court, since he developed the budget.
So I think we're all excited about this new effort, the municipal court. I have been working on setting up the court at the town manager's direction. I created budgets for both the current fiscal year and next fiscal year, which you're considering tonight. We will plan on setting up the court under the current fiscal year with a limited budget that Brian and I have worked on. We feel that we can reap enough cost savings or we can cobble together out of this year to get the court up and running in advance, because it's going to take some time to get the mechanisms moving. For the upcoming year, I have budgeted for a municipal court clerk at approximately $50,000. We also have money for a judge, full-time judge, and then a backup judge. So the judge, we have a stipend of $15,000. $3,000, what was recommended by individuals at the tribunal, is to have a backup at $3,000. That'll be at the council's discretion when you consider the judges in short order. Beyond that, we have ongoing operating costs. There is a specific software that we intend to purchase to manage the court system, computer equipment, et cetera, office equipment. That will sit all in the town clerk's office. We are working to select a clerk right now. I had interviews last week, anticipate making a selection this week, and we'll be, as I mentioned, selecting a judge soon, so that whole court should be up and running, hopefully the beginnings of by next month, and my goal is by July, have a fully operational court. We'll see how that moves along. There's a lot to do. Does anyone have any questions?
So I have a question. Your total budget for next year for the municipal court is $118,000 and $10, well, $118,010,
That's correct.
correct? Okay. And you anticipate, I see the clerk, I see the 18,000 part-time salaries is the judge and the backup.
Correct.
judge?
That's both the primary judge and the backup judge. So 15,000 for the primary, 3,000 for the backup.
Okay. And so you think it's March 6th, you think by April 15th we'll have the beginnings of the court?
We'll have the beginnings of the staffing up and
Okay.
running, but it's going to take a couple, 3 months to get. We still have a lot to do with ordinance. We have to set up the ticket books and all the other things that go along with the court, so.
Just like to add on that, we knew that it was going to be a ramp-up to get this court going. So we've been working hard, the staff has been working hard to hire a clerk. The interviews are done, we're ready to make a decision, hopefully by next week. You will have at least we have 4 now applicants to be the municipal court judge, which the town council will interview on March 27th, and hopefully make a decision. We'll have that in executive session shortly after you make a decision who you'd like. With both of those two working together, and we picked office space for them, that's when we will start ramping up a study of the ordinances and the fine structures and working with everyone. So the goal is July 1st, and hopefully but it will be very close to that before this court is actually operational, as well as working with the building inspector. That's a big part of this. And you'll see that we need to hire a zoning official for other reasons to help with this municipal court.
Understood. Thank you.
And Jim, the municipal court will also serve as sort of like an investment over time, maybe like a 3-year span. We anticipate that revenues generated from it will exceed the expenses related to it. Is that correct?
It is. I have to emphasize, though, this is not, the purpose of the municipal court is not as a moneymaker for the town, by no means. It's because we need regulatory and we need enforcement in areas that is so important to the town. We're too big not to have one. But if you look at every town that has one, it usually does pay for itself. And that is the hope, that the fines that are now going to the state will stay here in town and pay for the cost of a municipal court.
And just a note on that, we did work in some revenue, but we were very conservative on our estimates the first year. We knew that, we looked at surrounding municipalities, and we pretty much cut our estimates in half to be very conservative going in, because we know it's going to take some time to ramp up.
Thank you very much. I know it's been a lot of work. I know that we approved the municipal court months ago, feels like a lifetime ago, and I appreciate that it's moving along. Thank you.
I just wanted to note on this slide, it was talked about, but again, at the top of the slide, you'll see one increase in additional personnel. That is, again, the municipal court clerk. This slide represents town clerk, board of canvassers, and municipal court, so there is one up, and that is, as discussed, that's the municipal court clerk. And we're moving on to the next section now, general services, which is made up of finance, information technology, town assessor, planning, building and zoning, and facilities. So the first grouping would be finance. You're seeing a $50,240 increase proposed for finance. The largest piece of that is within the capital outlay. That is, we are looking to invest in a software for not only budgets, but the capital budgets, the budget, and the annual report. We'd like to bring this town forward in terms of its budgeting and the whole process. This is a very cumbersome process, And the town does take great pride in this. I know the town has received the budget award for, I'm not sure, I believe it's 8 years in a row, maybe 12, and the audit award has been 35 years, I think. But, so the town takes great pride in this, this process, and I think this can only move it forward and will help it longer. But that is where you're seeing a very large increase in finance and why.
What's the name of that software? Just curious.
We're going to look at, I know last year, Luke and the Deputy Finance Director looked at a few software. I know two of them, ClearGov and OpenGov. There was a third as well. I don't know. Well, we'll be looking at.
So they're very specialized programs.
Yes.
Okay.
When I was looking at how big this budget was, it is cumbersome. It's the most detailed budget I've ever seen, even with the state, and theirs are very detailed. But I asked the finance director, how can we make this better? Because they literally were working 70 hours a week for weeks on end to manually input all these numbers. There's a program. The easy way to do it would be to hire someone to do all the data input, but with a program, we have a lifetime, perpetuity of this, just making this budget that much easier for everyone in finance to get it done.
So Brian, this $70,000 outlay here, this will essentially be a one-time capital expenditure, which will reduce the amount of time you need to spend going forward when it comes to producing these budget documents. Is that right? Freeing up your time to focus
That's correct.
elsewhere, essentially?
I shouldn't say one time because I'm sure there'll be an annual maintenance, but this, this would be the large expense early on, and then we'll have an annual maintenance, I would assume,
Got it.
which would be drastically smaller.
So does the League of Cities and Towns have any sort of buying consortium? Because it would seem to me that other cities and towns might also want it, and we could maybe leverage.
So there are many areas that the League of Cities and Towns tries to consolidate on purchases, but this is not one of them.
Some other municipalities do use budget software now, and we'll certainly be in touch with them. My last year in Smithfield, before joining South Kingston, we had just implemented a budget software there. And I know Newport uses, I believe, a different one from Smithfield. So we will be reaching out to other communities to see what they use and what they like, in addition to speaking to the companies.
Okay. I'm just trying to scroll to that page, just to see where you see the 70,000. I'm just trying to look it on the actual budget document. This is 442 pages, so. It's not page 29 for sure. Okay, you can keep going, thank you. Sure. I found it.
Next up will be information technology. Information technology is proposing an increase of $15,273 from what was adopted in fiscal year 22-23. And Lori will be speaking to this.
Good evening, thank you. Our biggest increases I would consider contractual. It's for townwide email licenses, our financial payroll system, our tax collection and billing software. Also, our online permitting and business license software comes out of IT. We've also seen some increases for some improvements that we had to do around cybersecurity, and that's something that as of July 1st, the trust is instituting about 20 new protocols that towns have to meet to keep our insurance. And we're positioned well to meet all of those by July 1st. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Lori? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next page is the town assessor. Town assessor is proposed for an increase of $35,678 from the adopted budget in FY23 of $375,572. Mark Capiano will speak to that.
that's on now. Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank the staff, the Assessors Department. I joined the town in July of '22, and there had been a lot going on, a lot of transition in that department. And I have to say, when I came here, it was in very good shape for what they had been through. So I just wanted to point that out. Also wanted to thank the town manager and the deputy town manager. It's been a great experience so far, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank them. The Assessors Department, our office consists of 4 employees. Myself, the town assessor. We have a deputy town assessor, a data assessment clerk, and an office clerk too. So we are now fully staffed as of August 22. I just wanted to say that. When I first joined, we had 3, there was 3 of us, and now we have 4 and we are fully staffed. But as far as the budget goes, it's pretty straightforward. The revaluation is handled in capital budget, so that's not included here. So really this year, obviously with other than personnel, it's really just one expenditure that did go down was in regards to a subscription that the department usually paid about $800 for motor vehicles. We no longer need to price motor vehicles, so we don't need that subscription anymore. So that was one piece of savings that the department did see.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? I'll throw one out there. This might be a question for you, Brian, but I'll throw it to you, Mark.
Sure.
All right, looking at this, it looks like the increase in benefits is in excess of the increase in salaries. How does that occur? Looking at the slide that's presented on the TV here.
I believe, I can certainly circle back and confirm that for you, but I'm fairly certain the former assessor was either a single or a buyback, and now we have, some of the new hires that we've taken on are now on the actual plan. I think we went from one less buyback to somebody on a plan, and one of the new hires maybe on a family plan, but that's why you're seeing a significant increase in the benefits there.
That sounds good. Thanks, Brian.
Any other questions for Mark? All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next department is planning.
Before we just go, I just wanted to say it out loud to the community that the budget message that's online, the budget, it does show that they hope that 190 elderly residents will take part in the elderly tax abatement. That is an increase of like 28 families. So I just want to put it out there. It looks like it was 134 in 2020, 140 in 2021, 172 in 22, and 190 is proposed. So for all of us who just keeping the thread woven through forward, just wanted to point that out. That's on page 153 in the big book. Yep.
Planning is next. Planning is proposed for an increase of $96,710 off of above the current year adopted of $656,020. And Jamie Rabbit will be speaking to that.
Thank you, Brian. Just as a little background, I'd like to thank the council and as well as the town manager's office for the support of the planning department. This is my 3rd budget in South Kingstown. It seems like I arrived yesterday. Although someone mentioned I was here 5 years at another meeting, so maybe it seems more like 5 years versus 3. Again, I don't get an opportunity too much to thank my staff, Principal Planner Jay Parker, our Senior Planner Brian Wagner, our Planning Associate Lynn Smith, and our GIS Coordinator Carol Baker. They are integral staff to the department and kind of make the cogs of the wheel go round without kinking up or having issues. With regards to the planning department's budget, which is in essence composed of 2 items, both planning and GIS, within the planning department, our primary increase is in the consulting services realm. There's an increase of $50,000. We are doing this in an attempt so that we do not have to hire additional staff, that we can be as lean and mean as possible and hire the appropriate talent based on the project that we are undertaking. The council's aware of the push for affordable housing and also the push to review and look at Old Tower Hill Road, and those funds would be utilized primarily to move that project forward over the next 12 to 18 months versus a 24 to 36 month timeframe. The other slight increases we have are in professional services dues, AICP, Congress New Urbanism, American Planning Association, Rhode Island Planning Association. Dues have continually gone up over the years in order to maintain our professional certification. 2 planners within our office, both myself and Jay Parker, are members of the American Institute of Certified Planners, so you have 2 nationally certified planners. I have encouraged Brian Wagner to also sit for the AICP exam. We're anticipating hopefully that he'll be able to do that this year and have calculated those expenses in our budget. On the GAS side, there's just minor adjustments, kind of percentage increases and consulting services and licensing fees for our software. I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions? All right, I got one for you, Jamie. With respect to the hiring of a consultant to study the mixed-use zoning on Old Tower Hill Road. So, talk about a 12 to 18-month timeline. So you don't have the money in the current year, but the money would be set aside in the next fiscal year, which we're looking at right now. Is that right?
Correct. So we have some funds available in this fiscal year. We have a stewardship plan we're undertaking. We have $30,000 in the consulting fee for that. We're anticipating another $30,000 from a grant from the state of Rhode Island, as well as $30,000 in housing funds. So in essence, I have 2 initiatives, and I have close to $90,000 to start those. I can start them, but without additional consulting funds, I cannot finish them in next fiscal year.
All right, so
It
you
would have
can-
to go into 2024, 2025.
So you can sort of kickstart it in the year we're in now, sort of finish it through with the monies allotted.
Yeah, correct, Roy. I would like to do understanding the funding process for town council and then town meeting vote on the budget. We would entertain going out for requests for qualifications in the next 4 to 8 weeks. We would then have those results back, start discussions about retaining a consultant and potentially having a consultant on board in late April, mid-May. So we can start it in this fiscal year with the anticipation that funds are coming in for the next fiscal year. We do have some capital funds, but there's only $30,000 there, so if those consulting fees didn't become available, we would just have to slow it down. And I think the difficulty is when you slow it down and it goes over a 2-year process, you lose momentum.
Okay.
So with respect to the Route 1 stewardship, when do you think that that project might feel like it's moving again?
We have requests for qualifications back. We had 2 firms that responded. We're going through those now, so we would hope to negotiate a contract in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. And then, how long do you anticipate needing?
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. We've anticipated 3 to 4 meetings with the Route 1 Stewardship Committee and then the writing of the plan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
The next department for review is the Building and Zoning Office. Building and Zoning is proposed for an increase of $106,730 off of the adopted budget in the current year of $461,528. You'll notice at the top of the screen there, we have 1 additional FTE proposed in the current fiscal year, going from 4.5 to 5.5. This is the second of 2 proposed additional FTEs in this budget, and this, as mentioned previously by the town manager, the zoning official?
Well, the zoning and code enforcement officer.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll turn it over to the building inspector in a minute, but, so part of this master plan on regulatory enforcement and so forth is a true need in that office for someone to enforce the building code, and the rental registration would also fall under that official as well. So that is, once again, that is funds that I'm sure will be coming into the municipal court that'll help sustain that position for years to come. So I'll turn it over to the building inspector.
So as Brian said, there's a 23% increase, and that would be the salary comparable to neighboring towns such as Charleston, North Kingstown, with similar positions. And just to put it into perspective, I mean, in 2012, we had approximately, our department issued 2,300 permits. In this past year, we issued 3,400. So the staff is tasked with performing those inspections as well as the permit reviews, and then left with also doing the zoning enforcement. So having that additional or future code enforcement officer would be definitely beneficial. It's needed. And then the added rental registration would be, that's definitely going to take some resources as well. Additional increases would be associated with, let's see, uniforms, clothing, as well as computer technology for that new position. Other than that, vehicles, fuel, and materials, those are the only increases.
Thank you, Jamie.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next department is facilities. Facilities is proposed for an increase of $71,919 over the adopted budget in the current fiscal year of $964,388. Mark Russo will speak to this department.
Good evening. So the main driver on that budget increase here of on salaries and budgets are, we had two full-time long-term employees retire over the winter, and they were using the funds that we had from them to hire two new building maintenance technicians at a lower rate, and we were able to elevate a part-time employee to a full-time. So that's where the salary ends come. The benefits are because one of the retired people had a single plan, and one had the buyback. The new part-time employee going to full-time is going to get the buyback, so that's budget neutral. We just have to budget for two family plans for the new people, because we don't know what their situation is going to be. So that's the drivers of that budget.
Makes sense. Any questions for Mark here?
Just on you can see it there, the personnel FTE is 12.23. It just seems like an odd
It
number.
does. I don't know how we came up with that. It's,
Just saying, I'd never heard of that. Might be a typo.
well, could it, I don't know if it could be that some of the enterprise funds are paying these salaries. I'm not sure if that's,
Do you see where I am?
yes.
Here comes Luke to answer Jeopardy.
So you're right. So some of these may be allocated, and I'd have to go back. I have an FTE schedule, so I'll get you an answer on that. But there are some strange numbers because we allocate across different budgets for different positions. So sometimes you get these strange ones that are not whole positions. So we're basically tagging different budgets sometimes. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
And I'll get you information on how that was calculated.
Thank you.
And with this budget, this puts us at full staff to handle the 18 buildings as custodial and maintenance.
Excellent. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We're in the next grouping now. This is public safety, which is made up of police, animal welfare, fire alarm and communications, and emergency medical services. First up would be police. Police is proposed for an increase of $1,031,756 from the adopted budget in FY23 of $10,615,251, and the chief is here to speak on that.
Good evening. I think I want to highlight also, I'm in my 9th month here, and I want to really thank, coming in as new to the department, the town manager, the deputy town manager, really all the staff, the work that Brian has done. It really shows a great team. I always am bragging about the team I have at the police department with my staff, but from the manager on down, I think these times when we're in the budget season, it really shows how everyone really coming together. And I just want to highlight what the manager commented is that these are the tough decisions to make. I think our increases this year I think we're going to see a real big cost savings and the benefit of it as time goes on. We're very excited about the new contract that was negotiated. There was a lot of work that was put into that, and I think we're moving in the right direction on behalf of the police department. Some of the highlights, as has been mentioned, is our new community service officer position. This was a program that I instituted out in Block Island. It was very beneficial. And it really, it serves two purposes. It's not only a job, really what we're looking for. This is a paid internship. We're looking to recruit new police officers every day. We spend a lot of effort in speaking with young professional students and really trying to attract them to our profession. And I think this is an opportunity that the town can embrace and share what policing is like. So the community service officers will come in, they won't be armed. This is a part-time position that would be during the summer months. And they'll really assist us with some of the tasks that we do on a daily basis. Parking complaints, crowd control, visibility, so having a deterrent and having that visible presence in our community is so important. Excuse me, we're very excited about it, that this budget as proposed would allow us to hire 4. We'd like to start that as early as this spring and to advertise and really attract these individuals to come in, open the police department up, help us, assist us in doing our job, but also hopefully create some inroads for individuals who we could look to hire in the future. So that's a real benefit to us. As I said, when we went through our budget, we really went through line by line. There's areas that we trimmed. We shifted some costs from some programs that we believe that we can now apply to grant. One of the new areas, a new line item, is for a grant writer. I think it's very important. There's a lot of federal money out there, a lot of state money out there. And as an example, our CI2 program, which is very important to the town, very important to the police department, and that's crisis intervention team to deal with people that are struggling with mental health, substance use disorder in our community. That program we're looking to shift to be to actually be awarded a federal grant. We would be Washington County's representative. We're going to apply for it and allow that those clinicians would be paid with federal dollars, where the last 2 years that's coming out of the town budget. So that's a huge savings there of shifting the costs, and that's just one example of shifting from some of the expenses that we have to grant programs. Another would be our radar sets. So on a daily basis, we welcome the comments from our community about speeding in neighborhoods. So radar sets are something that we can purchase with federal grants instead of going and putting that in our budget and having it come back to the taxpayers. So again, we are asking for a large increase, and a big chunk of that is part of our labor contract. And I think as time goes on, there's a big cut in our overtime, and I think by shifting our scheduling and going to a 12-hour shift, we're really going to see the cost benefit of that moving forward, that some of those overtime costs are now going to be a lot more manageable as we move forward, and we feel as though we're going to see a 30% reduction in our previous overtime costs. So I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the items.
Excellent, thank you, Chief.
I just would like to commend you, especially on the grant writer position. I think that's really forward-thinking, and I feel very optimistic with the things that you've told us in terms of cutting overtime and how these will yield dividends going forward. So anyway, great job, especially on the grant writer. That's really exciting.
Great, thank you.
I do. So did you say the community police officer will be armed?
No, they're unarmed.
Oh, unarmed.
Unarmed, yep. They're unarmed, they don't have power of arrest. They'll do those tasks of parking enforcement, visibility.
I sort of got a little nervous. I'm like, they're not really trained.
No, if I misspoke, I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. I just misheard. I'm sure I misheard. That's why I wanted to ask. So you're going to hire 4, and they're criminal justice majors in college. You're trying to, it's like a recruitment and retention tool?
Yes, so we had I had a staff meeting this morning, we had discussed these positions, and again, it's not just a job. I'm not looking to just hire and fill a void. It's multi-purpose, and so we're really going to market this program to the university. Again, the University of Rhode Island is expanding in their criminal justice program. We want to be a big part of that. We have interns from the university, so that's really who we'll be marketing it to.
Okay, and then I appreciate that Councilwoman Alley praised you for the grant writer. Can you just go back? Because I think I was so misheard about the original thing, I was distracted. Can you explain the grant writer piece again?
So the grant writer is, we have a new line item here for a grant writer, really to assist us. There's a lot of federal money, federal, state money that's out there and available, and by, taking these steps to have a grant writer on staff, there's more opportunities that we can to really pursue. And an example is, again, we're looking at the CIT program. That's what was a budgeted item of $21,000 in the past. We shift that now to federal dollars. Just one grant that a grant writer would write would pay back those dividends. And that's just one example. There's many grants that we can go over. Whether it's equipment or additional staff support that we can pursue.
That's great. That's a great program. A question about the emergency management director. You're shifting it. Wasn't that you?
No, I can get into that.
Okay.
So as a town manager, I'm the director of public safety in the event of an emergency. And then under the incident command system, you should have a director of public safety, then you should have emergency management director underneath that person. And that's how the feds design these systems. So I came up with that idea and offered it to several members of the staff, but when the chief came on, Chief Vespia had it before, and it's the perfect fit. If a natural disaster occurs, anything with his reimbursement, he would be the police chief / emergency management director. He would take tally of all the money that's being spent for these responses, blizzards, floods, whatever they are, and we could get reimbursement from REMA and FEMA. And we're getting 50% return on what that $12,000 is. We get $6,000 back as revenue. That job will pay for itself many times over with one event, as well as the grant writer. So he can come up with some great ideas on all these grants, but the time to do them is prohibitive.
So he's not going to be writing the grants, the grant writer.
He's going to come up with the ideas and assign the person that's going to help him. For example, the COPS grant, right? The one that former Chief Clements is down in Washington laying out grants. There's a lot of money that municipalities can get if they have the time and energy to apply for this stuff. It's very labor intensive. So he'd come up with the ideas, what he wants, work with the person who would help write all the words needed to get the grants, and hopefully we'd get them.
Okay. So why is the title going to Chief Stanley? Just,
No,
I missed that.
no, Emergency Management Director, he would have that dual title. Chief Stanley's the Director of Emergency Medical Services, EMS.
So what, there's a stipend for that as well?
Well, that's a job description. So EMS is there all the time. He'd be the Emergency Management Director in the event of a name he'd have it, but in the event of a catastrophe, that'd be his title. And then I'd be the Director of Public Safety as if needed.
Okay, I still don't so when we get to Craig, you'll explain to me why that's a stipend? Because I,
No, he's not getting a stipend.
who's getting,
Chief Moynihan is.
oh, really? I missed that too? In the beginning of your budget message? Didn't you say there was a stipend that was going to go to the Director of EMS?
No, it's an EMA stipend going to the chief of,
Oh,
I forgive you.
hard of hearing,
That's
really,
okay.
truly.
That's okay.
Okay,
No, it is confusing. It is, I mean, unless you're in the business, there's a lot of titles, but they're all there for a reason.
I just thought they shifted from the
No.
police chief.
It's going to be Chief Moynihan will be the Chief of Police / Emergency Management Director as a dual title.
Get the stipend, get the $6,000 back, and pay for itself.
Yes.
Okay, so I did understand that part. Okay, great.
Jim, in the past, we never had someone holding this title. Is that
So
right?
we did. Chief Vespia did it for a long, long time, but about 2017, it stopped. And EMA contacted me personally and said, there's a lot of money at stake that you guys aren't eligible for because you don't have a titled emergency management director. That's when I first got here. And they said, we'll pay half, whatever your stipend is that you want to give. That's on the lower end of 12,000. Some municipalities pay 30, 20, whatever. But we are now eligible for these funds to reimbursement with that titled person to work with REMA.
And so maybe not now, but in a future question, I would have a question about what role does the natural resource officer have in relation to all of those emergency management situations regarding natural events?
Sure. And when you want that discussion, we can answer some of that. We have some of that knowledge as well.
Okay. I know it's not here. Maybe it's in 10 minutes,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's an enforcement / regulatory position.
So, Chief, with respect to the Emergency Management Director position, those duties would only come in play when there's sort of a natural disaster, sort of like a hurricane or?
Yes, but it's also preparedness. I think that's, majority of it is the reimbursement comes in during those natural disasters, but it's also preparedness. Again, we just wrote a grant for a mobile command center because of the large crowds that come down to URI, whether it be at the Ryan Center, whether it be at the football field, commencement, all of those things come into emergency management, to have these contingency plans and be prepared. God forbid, it doesn't necessarily have to just be a natural disaster. It could be, a threat. It could be a mass shooting event. All of those type of things that we need to make sure we have plans in place ahead of time.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank
Yep.
you.
One more example, it requires a monthly call with REMA that the chief has been getting on. And another example, when we got the snowstorm last week, there was a call with REMA to all the emergency management directors in the state, and Chief Moynihan got on that call, to coordinate if this was a big storm or whatever, but they get utilized a lot.
So, Chief, one more. So, all the costs related to these out-of-the-ordinary emergencies, we would potentially be reimbursed 100% for because we have sort of this title in place with you serving?
Yes,
Okay. So it's a win-win.
yes.
So when you talk about preparedness, are you collaborating? Because I know that there was an event over the weekend at URI that heightened security. Were you informed and
Yes.
partnering? Okay.
Myself and Chief Jagoda,
Yeah.
I was on the phone with him last night, late at night. We have a great working relationship, and that continues, and I think it just, again, it gets back to that team environment that we have in town. We're very fortunate with the staff that we have.
Thank you.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Chief, don't go too far. Next, we have animal welfare. Animal welfare is proposed at $383,445, which is an increase of $6,098 over the current fiscal year.
So when we look at this, you know, again, we went line by line, looking where we can make some cuts and savings. And, you know, we have just hired a new part-time animal control officer. She'll be starting shortly and starting the training with that. But basically, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
So Chief, here's one for you. You know, I'm just looking at the TV here, what's on the slide. So you got a full reduction in FTV approximately, but you see an increase in salaries. Why would that occur? That could partly be a question for you, Brian, as well.
I think so.
So just to repeat the question, and I'm looking at the slide here, so it's on the TV. It represents a proposed, almost approximate full reduction in FTEs. However, it reflects an increase in salaries. And the question is, sort of, how can that be? Oh, come on up.
Yeah.
So I will say that I went through a complete audit of the FTEs this year, so this is another one, I'll go back and see if the numbers didn't carry through. But I went through everything this year and by department, and it may have been an adjustment from a previous year. So I owe you an answer on that in short order.
All right. Works for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So last year, we adopted an ordinance about the chickens running around and the loose farm animals. Has there any calls for that type of response? And
We haven't, we did have, when I first started, we had some chickens that were called, our animal control officer does a great job, and again, works with the state agencies on how to deal with those, so, but no, nothing that's been out of the ordinary that can't be handled.
okay, chickens are in their coop.
Yes.
Who does one call if you see chickens in the road? I missed that, because I've
Yeah,
seen
they'll
a
call-
lot of chickens in the road.
They could call us and dispatch, and we have animal control officer that's on full-time, and then now, as I said, we just hired the part-time
So
that will assist.
you call the general number?
Yeah, call the police department, the general number, and dispatch, and then we would, and if the animal controls aren't working, then, you know, obviously the police officers will respond to that.
I saw a giant flock of turkeys.
Were you on South Road?
No, they were in the Christmas tree farm at the Farmer's Daughter, like enormous. On one, I didn't even know they flew. They do fly a little.
So that wouldn't be something that we would, unless they were obstructing traffic or creating a hazard, but
Yeah,
yes.
Saturday afternoon.
So Chief, the ordinance is accomplishing the deterrent effect that it has been put in place to accomplish.
Job well done.
All right.
Yes. It was a long time of walking.
All right. Any other questions for the chief?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
He stays right
Am
there.
I good?
Yes. Next up is fire alarm and communications. Fire alarm and communications is proposed for an increase of $5,671 over the current year budget, which was adopted at $316,195. And Lance is here to speak to this.
How's that? Better? Okay. The only real increase I have is fuel, lubricants, and electricity. The rest of it is pretty much level funded and contractual obligations.
We missed the beginning there about hyping up your department.
Oh, I brag about my two guys, Tony and Andrew. They just make it a fun place to work, and I enjoy coming into work every day with those guys, and they get it done. So,
Thank you.
Any questions for Lance? All right, thank you, Lance.
Next, we have emergency medical services. Emergency medical is proposed for a decrease of $204,649 from the current year, which was adopted at $2,652,847. And Craig is here to speak to this.
Good evening. Thank you. This is my sixth budget cycle so far, and I've tried to historically, if you look, try to keep it fairly lean. But it's a challenge, even though we have a reduction. As the town manager alluded during our capital hearing, it's very challenging in these times to maintain a budget, provide services. In my 37 years and probably 15 years at executive level, I've never seen the economy like this, where just substantial increases in normal commodities and really no reason for that other than supply chain or fuel. And for us, from my perspective, there's a lot of things I can't control. I can't control the amount of calls we run. I can't control the fuel prices. I can't control how much they charge for medical supplies. So those are really the commodities that have gone up. For me, in my budget is fuel, medical supplies, and equipment that requires maintenance. We're required to perform preventive maintenance on equipment because we generally don't like to have equipment that fails. That's not an option in our business. So other than that, we've been our budget is pretty lean. We did discuss the 4 positions that we're going to look at adding those later on when the station is built. And you talk about the grants. We're going to begin starting the community paired medicine program in the next 60 days. And I've paid for all of that equipment through grants. And also we're in collaboration with Narragansett Fire Department and Charlestown with more grant money to reimburse us as we start off doing this program. So, and
The program again?
the community paramedicine program, that's where we're going to go out and visit. And that's been a project that I've been trying to get started here for about 2 years. And now there's a lot involved working with the hospital on the backside. But we're moving in that direction and in cooperation with the police department with the mental health. So we work very well together with that to serve the community. And also our positions, we have 21 and a half-time position, which in this budget, this current budget, we hired a part-time person, which, the police chief talked about moving, workload or whatnot. We were sharing duties there for payroll and purchasing. So we added a part-time person that took that load off of the police department. And I think for the size of my department, I don't anticipate making that a full-time position anytime soon. I think that the part-time is going to suit us pretty well. Our volume is increasing pretty significantly. Our population that we serve is increasing dramatically, the age demographic. We're seeing a lot higher acuity patients than we have in the past. Our staff has done a tremendous job. They work very hard. They worked hard through COVID, and then the call volumes keep increasing. So we're very thankful for the hard work that they do each day. Any questions?
Any questions for Chief Stanley?
I do. So I thought last year we budgeted 8 new positions and a EMS vehicle. Did we do that? And we adopted that. I think that was one of the things I've been asking about the last week or so.
So in terms of the personnel, there were 8 positions, but they were only budgeted for half the year, effectively 4 positions. So they were budgeted to come on halfway through. So it was 8 positions, partial year, or 4 full positions.
Okay, and so we're not filling them for January to July, correct?
Correct.
So what did we do with that? Where did that budgeted money go? Did it go to a holding place so that this year we can access the money in July 1?
Hasn't, the funds have not been moved at this point. I think you were,
Yeah, I mean, we didn't staff those positions.
Yeah.
We have 3 true vacancies based, without adding the third truck, as we're looking at doing that in Perryville. So those positions, we did not add those.
I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
But
We did not fill them.
Right. But I think last year, we fully funded them working for 6 months. So where do those funds go if we don't, I understand we're not hiring them until after July. Where do they go, and then how do we not pay it again twice, I guess?
they would, if they stay within the EMS department, as they are currently right now, they would roll up at the end of the year into the town's fund balance, if they remain.
Okay, so we paid for them for this time, we're gonna put it in the undesignated fund, and we're gonna pay for it again. Right? Am I making sense? So why would we do that?
I don't, I think specifically because we don't have a need at this time, and the facility isn't gonna be opened for at least the fiscal year that we're
Yeah, the-
speaking of.
Right. The money is still there. For January to July. We're not gonna use it. It's gonna go into the undesignated fund. And then in July, with this budget, we're gonna refund it. It doesn't make, it,
Well, no, this budget doesn't contemplate.
No, it is not in next year's budget. It has been taken out.
in another year. Okay.
Yeah, next year. We took the 4 out this year.
They've been removed.
Any surplus with any department goes in that fund balance. But we took the 4 out. We took them out this year. They're not in our budget.
I just would like to not take that money and put it in the savings account. I'd like to use it, because we already spent it. Like we've
Well,
already allocated.
We fully anticipated to put them in this budget if we had a station up and built, or, you know, we didn't. So we took them out. Hopefully we'll have a station next year at this time, and we can talk about staffing it next year's budget. Yeah, Luke, you can explain.
Sorry, I just wanted to speak to this because I've been working pretty handily with the chief this past year. So one thing to note is that money that's there, and is there, will be part of the total budget balance when it's done. So while right now in that line item, there's a surplus, I think the chief's running quite a bit of overtime this year because of OGI claims and many other staffing issues we've had. We've been down staff to the point where we've initiated an MOU with the union to increase the per diem rate because we're having to rely so much on per diems. So in some ways, it was a blessing that we have some extra money in that budget item, because when everything's balanced out at the end of the year, we may find that we're not in as much of a surplus as we realize. Obviously, whatever's left would drop the fund balance, I think $1 million of which, and intentionally, we're using of this year in anticipation that there will be that net fund balance. So if that provides some context of the planning that went into it.
Thank you, Luke. Does that help, Deb?
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for Chief Stanley here? All right. Thank you, Chief Stanley.
Next, we will be moving to Public Services. Public Services is made up of Department of Public Services Administration, Tree Management Program, Street Lighting, and the Highway Division. First up would be Public Services, which is proposed for an increase of $58,741 from the current adopted budget of $641,853, and Rich is here to speak to it.
Hello. I'll start like everybody else, but, we've got some great supervisors over there in Public Services. Kathy Perez with wastewater, Brett Whaley with our water department, Scott Brown, even Bonnie Blair, a new hire with solid waste, and Mark Conboy in engineering that really helped to pull everything together. And of course, the administration, from our head office with Brian and Jim. I mean, everything's been really smooth. So just generally speaking, with the DPS administration, normally we'll treat this as the engineering budget because much of the software and all the licenses all go through that budget. But DPS, there aren't any staffing changes there this year proposed. But what you'll see is that the DPS, that administration budget covers all the costs for the building for the most part, 60% of the cost anyways, the rest of it comes from water and wastewater. So with the changes to, electricity and particularly electricity and gas, you'll see those costs go up, and I think that's much of the increase there. There's nothing proposed that's new. In fact, I think we even, this year, we don't have to pay on a license for AutoCAD or anything like that, so we'll even see some gains there, but again, with the commodities, it's just gone a little too high for us to not have to have a little bit of an increase. If there are any questions on that, or do you want me to continue with, I'll continue. So which am I dealing with now, Brian? With highway. So no staffing changes with highway. But what you'll see are some changes, and Scott Brown's been very creative with balancing this out. But we still have significant changes with some items like salt, sand, those types of things. We've gone from about $67 a ton last year to about $76 a ton this year. So what we're seeing is that we're still spending the same amount of money, but we're actually getting a lot less of those materials. So, and I think everything's going to be fine, but I just want to make note of the fact that we are getting a lot less for those dollars. And of course, with fuel costs and all those things, our fuel's up about $5,000. Contractual obligations came down because we have many new hires, but essentially the fund is level funded. In fact, it's down a little bit by 1.5%. Did I cover tree warden? Tree warden, there was no staffing changes, but we did have some suggested increases for arborist services and professional services. That's strictly related to tree removal. The tree warden costs, all those things stay the same, but our tree costs are going pretty high, and in order to stay ahead of things, we're asking for more dollars in that area. If that's okay. Street lighting is actually, we're always still sort of gaining on that. As you all know, that we had what I would consider a significant project in town where we spent approximately $600,000 to convert all of our lighting to LED lights. And I'll just explain so everybody's aware, but, there are a number of reasons why we did that. One is particularly because LED just costs less to run, and the electric costs can go down quite a bit for that. But with the conversion, we are able to get rid of about a third of our lights to the state. They'll take over their lights. We were also able to get rid of a number of the costs that we had with National Grid. In a sense, we were renting those lights, so by purchasing those lights and then converting the LED. So we went from about a $200,000 budget. Now we're at about $63,000 to run them, but we're asking for more dollars for the maintenance now, because now we own all these lights, so we need about approximately $22,000 to maintain. That puts us at about $78,000 total, $78,600 total. But again, down significantly from previous years. Water? Any questions on any of those?
Any questions for Rich right now?
Not on the trees.
Okay. Waters?
You want to go to?
You're going to go to water?
Rich, you're going to confuse us now. We're skipping ahead.
We're gonna do that later?
I
We'll do it
should have
later?
kept track of what page we're on.
Oh,
Done?
Let me just look again to see where I'm going when I come back, okay. 43.
do you want me out, or you want me to? There we go. So, no staffing changes with the water department, 2.5%. We have an increase. Of course, we buy our water wholesale from Veolia. We've had an increase of about 2.5% on the distribution system infrastructure charge, the DSIC charge. It's been a consistent increase up to, and this will be the third of the 3 years that we're going to see that. So we went up 7.5%. I believe that the water rate change that we made last year has helped us to balance this budget out pretty well this year, so we're not seeing any need for an additional rate increase this year on that budget. Anything more? I was wastewater? So wastewater, no staffing changes with wastewater. You'll see that we have some decreases, mostly increases with wastewater. We had some sludge disposal decreases, but much of those dollars moved over to what would be transport. We implemented a screw press at the wastewater treatment plant. That helps consolidate our waste a little bit, but the cost for shipping has gone up. I do want to note one thing, that, and the wastewater budget has gone up quite a bit, I believe, from previous years. We are, the wastewater treatment facility is the largest electric user out of all the town facilities, and our billing generally runs a little greater than $400,000 a year for just electricity. There are other utilities involved, but that's our biggest use. So with those dollars going up, that's an increase, quite a bit of an increase. But the biggest we'll see is some of our chemicals, and what you'll find, and you might have even noticed that when we bring forward different contracts for approval and whatnot, you'll notice. But, we have one particular polymer that's gone up $100,000 for this year, and over what it was previously, from $40,000+ to $140,000. So that's a significant increase, and I can't say why. I think it has a lot to do with, distribution issues and, availability. Maybe those things will come down, but we're anticipating that they're not for next year. And also our shipping cost, incineration, those things have all gone up. So wastewater's gone up. Again, we had an increase last year. I do not see that there's a need for any rate change this year. So that's all I got.
All right. Any other questions for Rich?
No, but I just wanted to, we hear a lot of stories about the town staff in general, and I just, the staff's wonderful. The staff does wonderful things that people don't realize, and I just wanted to recognize that someone in the water department called a resident and let them know that they think that the pipes burst in their house and saved them. So I just want to recognize, I think maybe it was Lynn, I don't even know, but just the good work that people do because they care about our community, and I just wanted to say it just to the public that that's just one example of many examples of the staff in South Kingstown just going above and beyond to make the community better, help people out. The person who had their pipes burst was very grateful that that's how they found out, was from the town saying, hey, we think you have a problem.
From Liz, yeah. Yeah, so Liz comes in every month, just so you know that the way they are, you're right, they're very dedicated, but everybody is very dedicated.
Everybody. As a
Right.
shout out to everybody.
Liz, and just so it's an
Liz.
obscure little task that nobody knows, but every Monday Liz comes in and she looks through all of the data. We can tell hourly what people are using, and if there's any spike, she goes out of her way to find out if there's a leak or something like that. And it's very difficult. This time of year, it's a very difficult thing to.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
So there's many.
And then, by the way, Brett goes over, shuts the water off, and then, and Ken's out there, and they're out.
It's just amazing, Rich, and I just wanted to call it out that there's multiple examples of staff everywhere, Jim, going above and beyond, and those are the little things. that really matter to people that live in the community that the town, Liz, said, hey, you're the water problem. So
Yeah.
just recognizing there's a lot of good work all the time, so
You'll be happy to hear that. Thank you.
thank you.
Hey, Rich, we do have the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. Is that you as well?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. All right. This is my first time through this. Oh, and I even have it here. All right. So solid waste, there's no staffing changes, and I'll be really quick about this. But you will notice a rather large decrease in, due to debt service. The Rose Hill debt service has been paid down. So now all we'll see going forward for the next 3 years, I believe, is with the URI out at URI, that Superfund site out there. So that's it.
All right, thank you, Rich.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move back to the next section, which is Parks and Recreation, which is made up of the Recreation Department Administration, Park Maintenance, Athletics, Aquatics, Leisure Services, Creative Activities, and Harbor Patrol Natural Resource. First department being Parks and Recreation, which is proposed for an increase of $160,419 from the current year, which was $2,121,659. And Terry is here to speak to this.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity this evening, and I would be remiss if I did not recognize my staff as well for the wonderful work they do, particularly our superintendents. Lenka Kapik is here this evening, Mike Stack is the harbor master, and Rex Eberly is not with us tonight, but they were an integral part of putting this budget together. They drilled down to individual programs, parks, to really get to the costs for what next year will look like. So, as Brian noted, the Parks and Recreation General Fund is proposing a $160,419 increase. It's about a 7% increase overall. And I will point out, Rory, because you may ask, is you see a decrease in the FTEs. What I think occurred there is that in the adopted for 22-23, that should have been down to what it is now, because the facilities personnel were moved out of the different departments into a single centralized facilities cost center. Under salaries and benefits, you will notice an increase in both the salaries. There were some reclassifications in the last year, and we also had a vacant position that is being filled, which is actually posted right now. And on the benefits side, we have that vacant position budgeted as a family medical. Until we know how it is filled, that position will be noted or funded for family medical. Just to get into a little bit of the detail on the general fund side, we have 6 cost centers, and those all are related to different functions of the department. We have administration, parks. Parks is the majority of the budget because of the labor intensiveness of that particular function. We have athletics, aquatics, leisure services, and creative activities or Stepping Stone Preschool. And then we also have the Harbor Master Natural Resource Officer Division, which is noted separately in this budget simply because it hasn't been enrolled under yet, but it is part of the Parks and Recreation budget. So most of the increases are due to contractual obligations, but also you'll notice in Fund 4001, which is administration, we have a couple of increases there under medical insurance, which I just spoke to about a vacant position that we're budgeting for family medical, and under educational expenses, which is a couple $100 increase. It looks like a significant increase, but we are trying to position our staff and employees to be able to maintain certifications and also grow professionally through certain trainings and activities related to their jobs. The Parks Division, a Again, there's no increases in the full-time employees. You will notice there's a 20%, approximately 20% increase in seasonal salaries. We do have 4 seasonal, long-term seasonal positions that are laborer positions with the Parks Division, and they're critical to the operation of parks throughout most of the year, 9 months of the year. And we also have an increase in overtime. That's due to things like adding staff for maintaining fields for certain things like the Ocean State Waves. On the flip side of that, those renters of fields pay those fees. So while we show the overtime, we also show on the revenue side, under park rental revenue, that's what we charge back for those fees. We also have some increases under motor vehicle maintenance and maintenance of general equipment. We are attempting to make our vehicles and our equipment last a little longer, a little more life in them, and for that reason, we're proposing a little bit more funding in those categories, because we do anticipate that we will have some maintenance involved there. Under the athletics program, we are up 21.25% in athletics. And again, when we get into the programming components, the revenue offsets really sustain these programs. So what you see here under professional services, you see a 36% increase. That is for independent contractors to come in and operate camps, summer camps, other programs, umpires, those types of things. If the programs don't run, the funds aren't expended. So when you look at these budgets, keep in mind that particularly the professional services line items reflect what we believe is what we will spend on programming in the next year. And then on the flip side, when you look at the revenue, you'll see the corresponding revenue. The aquatics program, I think I mentioned a few weeks back at the council meeting. The beach program obviously is increasing in cost. We, for the past 12 years, have run that at a sustainable operating budget. This will be the first year where there's about a $5,000 gap in operating costs versus what we're projecting bringing in revenue. That's mainly due to the cost of lifeguards and staffing and competing with other local coastal communities. The leisure services program shows almost a 14% increase. Again, you'll notice under professional services that's the biggest, the biggest jump. And again, the leisure services programs are our Discovery Camp, that's the summer camp. It's also our free community events, which are the 4th of July, the Easter egg hunt programs, the pumpkin path, those types of events that are entirely free to the community fall under the leisure service program budget. Creative activities, that is our Stepping Stone preschool program, and that is running at about close to a 7% increase. We do have funding from a hazard trust that is dedicated to that preschool. That's the only thing we can use that funding for. So we are proposing we will operate the preschool again next year, 3- and 4-year-olds. They are half-day programs. We have been asked about how we could dovetail with a Department of Education program. This program's licensed under DCYF, not RIDE, because of the building and some of the limitations in the building. It's not fully accessible. So we're unable to make that jump. But we do have an interest, and I know there have been some preschools that have closed recently, and there is a need. We won't fill everyone's need because these are half-day programs, and for full-time, parents working full-time, it may not suit them. It may. There may be grandparents involved, but we will be planning to run the program next year. And then on the revenue side, What I'd like to point out is that we have increased revenue. We're projecting revenue increase at a, let me just get there, 11.49% in our total revenue. And most of that falls under, we have town beach operation and also our recreation self-support programs, which are our independent contractors. When all is said and done, expenses versus revenue, we are looking at approximately 7% increase in tax support, which is about $92,000. But I'd like to share that kind of frame of reference so you understand that we're pulling revenue in to really offset the direct costs of many of the programs. And that's where the Parks and Recreation budget is. And then the other budget would be the Harbor Master budget, which this is the first year that this will be fully funded, and the Parks and Recreation Department funds 45% of that position. And as you are aware, this position was funded for the first 2 years through rescue plan dollars. It is now funded across multiple departments, primarily Parks and Recreation and the Police Department. The Harbor Master, Natural Resource Officer, the role of that position changes depending on the time of year it is. So obviously, in the height of summertime, that position is focused on safety and security on our waters, boating safety, being on the water, also focused on Marina Park, the activity there. That is the location of two boat ramps, one which is under construction now, and this position also is involved in capital projects such as the boat ramp project. This is a liaison for the Waterfront Advisory Commission. He is involved in the harbor management plan as well as the coastal access. He's the liaison for dealing with many of the coastal access issues in CRMC as well. So that is the Harbor Master, Natural Resource Officer, and you'll see the total expenditures at $62,224, with really only salary and benefits. The rest of that division is level funded.
Thank you, Terry.
So if I recall, when we first created the Natural Resource Officer position, there was also going to be some grant writing responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Has that person been able to undertake any grant writing?
Yes, Mike Stack has written a grant for the pump-out station at Marina Park at Ram Point Marina. The town did receive that grant, approximately $18,000, I think, was that grant. And we have also submitted a grant through the, God, I'm drawing a blank, for a new Harbor Master boat. Remind me, Mike, what the name of the grant program? Port Security Grant, excuse me, for over $200,000. So that grant was applied for. The town did not receive that grant. However, he is actively involved in resubmitting that, and town manager knows
So
what.
that grant was submitted today a second time. Port Security Grant was very tough to get. We applied for 4 grants today, one of which was the Harbor Master boat that Mr. Stack did write and submitted on time.
Thank you. I just think raise the interest in coordinating the talent so that we can go after the money, just letting everyone know publicly that we have people that are actively pursuing grants and we have talented staff, and continue to encourage that.
So we applied for the boat, we applied for a new rescue vehicle, we applied for a emergency mobile command post, and most of all, we applied for a water purification system. That's a big ticket item. That was the #1 priority. And that was through Senator Reed's office.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Just one more point, if I may. This position will also be involved with the municipal court in terms of issuing a notice of violations for various things related to the environmental safety and also waterway safety. So we do anticipate that the Harbor Master and Natural Resource Officer will be involved with the municipal court program.
Terry? Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Terry.
Am I still up? Yeah, that's fine if you're...
Is it senior? The senior services?
Senior services?
Yeah. So that is, oh, actually, the first year, Peacedale, right?
Peacedale office?
Peacedale office building,
Can
yeah.
do that. Am I good to go, Brian? Okay. So the Peacedale Office Building Fund is a separate self-sustaining fund. The Peacedale Office Building houses a number of lease tenants, as well as some recreation spaces, including an art studio, pottery studio on the ground basement level, and an exercise studio on the third floor. The revenue that comes in from the rental leases and the programming covers the cost of operating the Peacedale office building. And you will see that we have it says 4 full-time employees assigned to it, but what I will clarify is that is a piece of a building maintenance person. That is a small percentage of my salary to oversee it, and that is also a percentage of, I believe, finance director and our facilities superintendent, just to clarify how that's broken out. And then basically, the Peacedale office building budget is operating the building, maintaining the building, and we're looking at a total of, looking at the wrong thing. Sorry, I flipped the page here.
Proposed is $106,633, an increase of $15,766 from the current adopted budget of $90,867.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions related to the Peacedale office building?
Neighborhood Guild?
As the council is aware, the Neighborhood Guild Fund is also a self-sustaining fund. The town is fortunate enough to have trust funds through the Hazard Trust that allow us to fund about 60% of the guild operation through endowment, interest income on the endowment. There are a number of cost centers within the guild. What I will point out is we have just fairly level funding. What you see here as an increase of $158,577 is primarily programming. Since COVID, the guild is finally back to pre-COVID activity levels, and so we have budgeted for programming at that level. We have seen an increase this year with the guild being quite active again, and so what you'll notice is primarily professional services again, and of course our revenue will offset that to make those self-sustaining. Unless there are any questions, and I would add that our personnel that's assigned to the guild, most of those staff are split 50-50 between the Neighborhood Guild Fund and the Town General Fund admin, which I just went over with you, the administrative 101-40001. We're very pleased to say that the guild is quite busy these days, so unless there are specific questions.
Rec Center?
The Recreation Center Fund, again, this is a very active facility. We have seen an increase. We are beyond pre-COVID activity levels, which is a very good thing. The community utilizes this building day and night. For the sake of this budget, the ask for the general fund transfer is $387,000. That's a 2% increase from the current year. So I'm pleased to be able to note that our program revenue has increased dramatically. We have a number of programs, leagues, activities that are really helping to offset the tax contribution to the recreation center. We have staffing, mostly part-time staffing with folks at the front desk, but our full-time staff is a manager, an athletic supervisor, and a building maintenance, full-time building maintenance, and 2 part-time building maintenance folks. So we run very lean at the rec center. It's well-received by the community. We're struggling with making sure that our South Kingstown residents are the first ones served in our building. Any questions?
I'm a big proponent of pickup basketball over there, and I can't wait to go back soon.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Next is Senior Services.
I'm going to call up Susan DeMasi, the Senior Services Director.
Good evening. Oh, is that on? So the senior services budget oversees 4 cost centers, which are transportation, nutrition, the senior center, and adult day services to a very small degree at this point. We are actually requesting less than we did last year, but to just explain why. We got a $76,000 grant this year, which is covering a lot of staffing for programming. So that's a 21-month grant, which 12 of the months will be in the next fiscal year. So that has taken, it's a one-time grant through opera money through the Office of Healthy Aging. So that was able for us to kind of keep everything else level, if not less. We anticipate still receiving support from our municipal partner, which is the town of Narragansett. It's proposed they would add to our additional 13.4% to our budget. As you know, we are in conversations with the town of Narragansett now and have a date to present to them in April for this coming budget for what their fair share would be. About a third, you want to go, Jim?
That's all right,
Okay.
but I just want to add, we have not resolved the issue from last year yet. So a couple of pages down, you'll see 100%, they owed us $101,000, they sent a check for $55,000, cut about 40-something thousand dollars out of it. But, so April 3rd, Terry and I will be at their council meeting to respectfully request that funding be fully reinstated, and then moving forward, keep that $100,000 amount in an informal MOU. I'm sure you had questions about that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the Narragansett residents make up about 33% of all of our activities in the senior center. They have started 2 years ago already their own lunch program. We still do get many of their seniors for our lunch program, and it just seems right across the board that 31 to 33% of our participants are Narragansett residents. Let's see, for transportation, our bus continues. We are hoping to get a new bus in the next few years. Our bus is for residents only to the center and for shopping. We are looking at different things. We're getting less and less people as many of our seniors are more mobile for longer. We have less people coming in on the bus to the center, but finding that we need a lot more people for shopping and things like that. So the shopping has become full swing, especially since COVID is over. The center is in full swing since COVID. We have, I can't tell you how many new members we get a week. We probably get 15 to 20 new members a week. They're very active, they're very, they're getting younger and younger. And they're wanting things that are educational, are physical, are healthy. It's just a whole new breed, and we are full-blown going strong at the center. Our nutrition program, again, is, well, right now, we're in a grab-and-go mode again because of our problems with the water pipe break, but up until that, we get, on average, 30 people a day. Many are coming for the socialization almost more than the food, but again, we do see Narragansett participants there, even though they have, their own in Narragansett. We get approximately 140 participants per week. That is duplicated, but we're serving a good amount of people for food. Adult day services that we will be entering our third year of a 3-year agreement with St. Elizabeth's Community. We have added a little bit more to that budget this year just for minimal building maintenance, which those fees have been taken out of the senior center budget. We oversee the building for major things. We still have them in our capital program. Other than that, we're fully writing grants. We have 4 active grants right now. This one was a nice surprise. It will be short-term. It is just for the 21 months, so next year, unless something else comes up like that, we won't have that funding, but for this year, it has helped with the bottom line. Have any questions?
I had a question about the adult daycare, and is that run at the center, or you said it was affiliated with St. Elizabeth's?
So we used to run the adult day center through the town, and during COVID and whatnot, the town made the decision to have it operated by a third party, and St. Elizabeth's Community took that role over. So we leased them the building for $1 a year, and they have their program in that building, which is on Post Road. And we oversee the building. We don't oversee the program.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
I was just going to add that I ended up going with Jim and Terry, and were you there, Sue?
Yeah.
We were all together at the Narragansett Town Hall in that meeting, and I did learn that they have, this is just a little nugget, they have a software system that they are tracking, and they are our senior center, so they can know how many people come, when they come, and they can run a lot of reports in terms of like access to services, so that was very helpful in explaining to Narragansett how used it is to like back up your people are coming here for lunch and going to do other programs. So Narragansett does not yet have that software system on their side, but our side does, and it sounds like they're very clear on how they collect the data. They have a census point, and they use that routinely, so they have a lot of rich data that if we ever needed to document anything, it's all there. But I was very impressed because I had not heard that and had not gone to that meeting.
We've had the system for quite a while, but you can pull up any report that you want, and you can pull it up consistently the same way so that you're always comparing apples to apples. So it was very helpful. That's how we get all of our stats to give to Narragansett.
Yeah, so just, if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't know the level of preparedness and documentation that we could provide to another community, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next section is public libraries, which is made up of Peasedale Library, Kingston Free Library, and the Robert Beverly Hale Library. And presenting will be Laurel. First up is public libraries, which is proposed for an increase of $23,088 over the current adopted budget of $1,381,181. I don't think so.
There we go. Okay. I'll be brief, but I did want to take a moment to thank my staff, as my colleagues have done, and I've never met a group of kinder and dedicated people, so shout out to those who are watching. I know a few are. And I wanted to thank administration for the leadership that they've shown. So as Brian mentioned, we have a very small increase, $23,008. A lion's share of our budget is salaries. We're able to gain one full-time employee for this budget, this year, and going into next year, and that is actually budget neutral. And we had a little realignment for our part-time staff. So our actual operating increases are really only $4,740.
All right. Any questions for Laurel?
Just curious, how is the project with the Eastdale?
Waiting patiently.
Okay.
Yeah, but now we're distracted with, we had a pipe burst, so we're focused on that, yeah. So
Sorry.
that's okay. We'll get a new floor. Yay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Laurel.
Thank you, Laura.
Next up is the non-departmental funds, which is made up of municipal insurance, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, fund contingency, and town health care. This is going to be me, and before I get into this, I got to take the opportunity, since all my colleagues have praised their staff, and I went first and I didn't go, so I'm up. Oh, okay. So I'm up. I feel like I got here and tried to get settled into the job, and then have just been thrust from one project to another, and my department is humming. They are very, very capable, and the department is in great hands. They all do a great job. They lead by example. They do a great job, and the town is very fortunate to have every one of them. So I really appreciate all that they do, and they make my job a lot easier. Anyway, back to...
Wait, does Susan want to go? No, I'm just kidding. You can if you want. I know, the clerk's office is, I personally interact with them, and I think the women who work in the clerk's office are vastly underestimated in the amount of work that they do accomplish, and I just want to give them a shout out, because they do from licenses to the voting to the land records and more, so I just, thank you. And what? Elections, I said elections. Heroes.
So first up is insurance and claims. This is our property and liability insurance budget for the town. It is proposed for an increase of $25,920 over the current budget, which was adopted at $809,394. This represents an increase. This increase represents an estimate at this time. I've reached out to the trust and asked for an estimation, because the renewal is not available yet for next year, and this is what I've been provided as an estimate at this time for an increase for FY24.
In terms of services, is that where the trust line would be?
This is property and liability insurance for the town. This one, yeah, that is, yeah. I have others, so oh, I'm sorry. Is that, okay. There are other things in there, I'm sorry. I thought I had more slides. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. So also included in that, rolled up, is the unemployment, which is up 1,000 from the prior year. Workers' compensation is up $9,920. Miscellaneous expense, or the contingency fund, is level funded at $26,000, and town health care, which is made up of a contingency, and OPEB, which is also level funded at $90,000. I should note on the town health care, We were funded through June 30th, 2021 at 130 or 133% funded. We had a very, and that was before the first year we dropped, as you saw, from 250,000 to 90,000. It was a very bad year that year in terms of return on investment. The fund dropped from 133% funded to 119%. But that said, again, with the very bad return, we're still 119% funded, and we felt prudent to level fund at this time at the 90,000.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay.
He was like,
Right. Thank you, Brian.
Yes. And we're doing that tomorrow night. Capital outlay. Capital outlay, we've talked about previously, and I'm drawing a blank. It was turned over. It was submitted by the town manager in December, and I think it was voted on in January. This represents a 5.07% increase from what was adopted in FY23. Its total amount is $1,898,125. This is made up of $75,000 for the property revaluation fund. I can't say that. Capital equipment and replacement at $458,000. Technology reserved at $70,000. Library improvement fund at $105,000. Public safety reserve at $110,000. Public works improvement fund at $748,125. The rec development and restore fund at $220,000. Town hall improvements at $75,000, and transfer to other funds at $37,000.
so just to make sure I understand, this is year one of a 6-year capital improvement plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
This represents what was presented in December as the pay-go. Correct.
All right. Any questions for Brian on this? All right.
We did Peacedale. Oh, no, that's, yeah. That's still on senior. Okay, debt service. Debt service for FY24 is coming in at $1,915,386. That is a reduction of $109,000. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why I have a typo on there. If you look over it to the last column, the decrease is 109,000, and then underneath it's showing as 115,000. So that's, I have something wrong there. It is. I gotta see which one is right. So debt service should be going down 115,766. This is a decrease because as time goes on, debt generally goes down each year. So this is this again is a breakdown of the debt. So it's 1.1, almost 1.2 million from municipal debt, $649,129 for education debt, and the $77,423 related to the guild debt that was issued last year, along with some additional municipal debt. And this is a breakdown of the actual debt itself. So the debt is funded, that 1.9 million is funded from a general fund transfer of 1,165,000. The guild is funding their debt at 77,000. We are proposing to draw 150,000 from the debt service fund reserve. There is school housing aid totaling 219,000 for the school debt. Open space reserve, open space funding for the open space debt totaling 236,000, and the fair share development fees related to the recreation debt totaling 66,000. And finally, related to debt, this is per the last audit. So as of June 30, 2022, this is the debt that is on the books at this time. Currently, general obligation debt, the town has $17,126,000 on the books and $408,000 related to business-type activities or the enterprise funds. That, again, is as of June 30, 2022. At the end of this current fiscal year, because of the debt service that we've paid down, that number will be about approximately $15 million, and it will be going to under $14 million within the next fiscal year that we're discussing at this time.
All right, thank you, Brian. Any questions?
On the debts.
All right, we're good.
And I think we covered water, we covered the enterprises.
All right, that's going to bring us to the end here. If there's no thoughts from council members, we will give an opportunity to the public. If anyone has shown up and wishes to speak, we invite you to come on up. Just ask that you limit it to 5 minutes, and we just ask that you first identify yourself. So with that said, first come, first serve.
Dorals, are you coming up? Okay. Because you might be the only member of the public.
My name's Doral Beasley. Okay, so, the rec center. Rec center is a fabulous facility. The one space in that building that is lacking is the room with the cardio machines and the exercise equipment. It's very small. It's so small that if you get, 3 or 4 people in there in the warmer weather, there's no windows, it's kind of stifling. You have to keep the door open, actually, so that you don't, so you can breathe. It would be nice if that room could be expanded. Now, right next to it, going on the north side there's a big room. It's like a dance, it's got the wood floor like a dance studio kind of thing with the bars for the... you wouldn't have to increase the width of it that much, maybe a few feet, but if you could go then to the outside wall with the room, so you could get to a window or two, it would make it so much better. You'd be able to put more machines in there, maybe some more, expand your other area there where you have some kettlebells and stuff like that, but it's really kind of bleak. Now, there's a lot of competition in the town now for exercise places, right? So, Planet Fitness, about a week ago, I was coming out of Staples one night around 7 o'clock, and as I looked into that space, I could not believe it. I mean, Planet Fitness, there's every machine in there, somebody was on it. Of course, they're only charging $10 a month, so, but anyway. All right, I know you're not talking about the schools tonight, but just going to give you a heads up, just one thing. So I've already looked at the school budget, and what I noticed was there's about $1 million reduction, but it's a shell game, because they took $1 million out of salary, but it came out of $1 million out of salary from the grant money. And so but in the actual non-grant money salary, it went up. And then over on the other, in the category of other services, which includes the tuition we pay out of district, that's now $5.7 million, or $5.4 million for this, they're projecting for this coming year. So that went up. So the reality is, unless something changed, because there was no link to the budget this morning, maybe something's changed for tomorrow. I was going to go see, but you're really going to need to ask them when you meet with them next time, what are they doing over there?
Doral, next Wednesday, the 15th, we will have a work session with the school committee, so we will try to ask your question. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else in the audience wish to come on up? All right, seeing none, this is going to bring us to the end here. I do want to thank all the department heads and all the town staff. Very good job presenting your budgets and informing us. It's very informative, and it allows us further insight into, how the departments run and the needs they have. So we appreciate that. And thank you as well, Town Manager, Brian, Susan. And that's it. Everyone have a good night tonight, and we're back tomorrow for another meeting.